Have you ever tried slicing a tomato, and instead of cutting cleanly, your knife just squashes it? Or maybe you're chopping onions and the knife feels like it's fighting you every step of the way. If that sounds familiar, your knife may not need replacing. It probably just needs sharpening. Welcome back to the Home Cook Bible, where we make cooking easier, smarter, and more enjoyable for home cooks and aspiring chefs. Today, we're answering a question that confuses a lot of people. How often should you sharpen your knives? Because the truth is, it's not as simple as once a month or once a year. It depends on how often you cook, how you use your knives, and whether you know the difference between sharpening and honing. By the end of this video, you'll know how often to sharpen your knives, how to tell when they actually need it, and how to keep them in better shape for longer. First, let's clear up the biggest misunderstanding. A lot of people think honing and sharpening are the same thing. They are not. Honing is what you do with a honing rod, that long metal or ceramic rod you often see in kitchens. Honing does not really remove much metal. What it does is help realign the knife's edge when it bends slightly out of place during regular use. Think of it like straightening messy hair instead of getting a haircut. Sharpening, on the other hand, actually removes a small amount of metal to create a fresh, new edge. That means sharpening is something you do less often, while honing is something you can do much more regularly. So if your knife feels a little off, it may only need honing. But if it still feels dull after honing, then it's probably time to sharpen. Now, let's answer the big question. How often should you sharpen your knives? For the average home cook, a good rule is to sharpen your main kitchen knife about every 3 to 6 months. If you cook every day, especially if you're doing a lot of prep work, like chopping vegetables, slicing proteins, and cutting herbs, you may need to sharpen closer to every 2 to 3 months. If you only cook a few times a week, maybe every 6 months is enough. For professional cooks or serious home cooks who use their knives heavily, sharpening may be needed more often, sometimes monthly, depending on the knife and the workload. But here's the most important thing. Don't sharpen by the calendar alone. Sharpen based on performance. Your knife will tell you when it needs help. So what are the signs? One of the easiest signs is the tomato test. A sharp knife should glide through the skin of a tomato without much pressure. If the blade slips, crushes the tomato, or forces you to saw back and forth, that edge is getting dull. Another sign is when you're cutting onions, carrots, or herbs, and the knife starts feeling resistant instead of smooth. You may also notice that clean slices become rough cuts. Meat may tear instead of slicing neatly. Herbs may bruise instead of cutting cleanly. And here's something people don't always realize. A dull knife is actually more dangerous than a sharp one. Why? Because when a knife is dull, you use more force. More force means less control. Less control means a higher chance the blade slips and hits something you didn't want it to hit, like your fingers. So keeping a knife sharp isn't just about performance, it's also about safety. Now, let's talk about what affects how often you need sharpening. The first factor is how often you cook. Pretty obvious, but important. A knife used twice a day is going to dull faster than a knife used twice a week. Second is what you cut. If you mostly slice soft fruits, boneless meats, and herbs, your edge will last longer. But if you're cutting hard squash, dense root vegetables, frozen food, or working around bones, your knife will dull faster. Third is your cutting surface. If you use wood or plastic cutting boards, that's good. If you cut on glass, ceramic, marble, granite, or metal surfaces, your knife edge will lose sharpness much faster. Glass cutting boards may look nice, but for knife edges, they are terrible. Fourth is knife quality and steel type. Some knives hold an edge longer than others. Harder steels often stay sharp longer, but they can also be more brittle and may need more careful maintenance. Softer steels may dull a bit faster, but they can be easier to sharpen. And fifth is how you store and care for your knives. Tossing knives loosely into a drawer is one of the fastest ways to damage the edge. A knife block, magnetic strip, blade guard, or protected drawer insert is a much better option. So what should a simple knife care routine look like? Here's an easy system. If you cook regularly, hone your main knife every few uses, or even before a big prep session. It only takes a few seconds. Then sharpen when performance drops, and honing no longer brings the edge back. For many home cooks, that lands somewhere around every 3 to 6 months. And once in a while, especially if you own expensive knives, consider a professional sharpening service if you're not confident doing it yourself. Now you might be wondering, what's the best way to sharpen? There are several options. A whetstone gives the best control and often the best results, but it takes practice. A pull-through sharpener is easier and faster, but some can be rough on the blade if they're low quality or used incorrectly. An electric sharpener can be convenient, but you want a good one designed for your knife style. And again, professional sharpening is a solid choice if you want reliable results without learning the process yourself. The best method is the one you'll actually use properly and consistently. Before we wrap up, here's the simplest answer to remember. If you're a home cook, sharpen your knife roughly every 3 to 6 months. Hone it regularly and pay attention to how it cuts. If it struggles with simple ingredients, slips on tomato skin, crushes herbs, or feels like it needs force, it's time. A sharp knife makes cooking faster, safer, and way more enjoyable. It gives you cleaner cuts, better control, and less frustration in the kitchen. And once you get used to working with a properly maintained knife, you'll never want to go back. If you found this helpful, subscribe for more practical kitchen tips here on the Home Cook Bible, where we help you cook with more confidence at home. And in the comments, tell me this: do you sharpen your knives yourself, or do you take them to a professional? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.